Welcome back. Let's get you in your seats, please. This is the penultimate session, and we have saved one of the best for last, so I'm sure you are going to enjoy it. This presentation is all about media relationship, and we have a very special guest who I'll introduce in just a moment. But as many of you know, the police-media relationship has always been a really interesting one. It's certainly had its incredible highs, but it's also had some very low lows as well. We're going to have a look at the subject of the police and the press, and specifically the fight for trust in more detail. So to tell us a little bit more and to give us the perspective, certainly from the reporter's side of it, would you please give a very warm welcome to our special guest, who is the chair of the Crime Reporters Association, Rebecca Camber.
Good morning. I'm here to talk to you about four key things: trust and confidence, openness and transparency. They've become the buzzwords for policing, words that have been repeated many times during this conference. I don't need to tell you how important these four things are. I don't need to repeat all the things that have gone wrong over the last year or so to damage the public's perception of policing. But if policing is to get these four things right, if it's to improve public confidence, let's start with trust. To inform the public about the work of policing, a successful working relationship between the police and the media is vital. Media reporting not only helps solve crimes, it helps bring offenders to justice, and it also keeps communities safe. You only have to look at the Great Escape of Wandsworth to see that. The reality is, though, that many people in policing don't trust us, the media. And I'm sorry to say that more and more, the journalists are starting to feel the same. Now, increasingly, it seems the police don't want to engage with the media. They don't want to talk to us. People are frightened to speak. The walls have gone up. At a time when policing should be more open about what it's doing, it feels like it's become closed. And the last year has seen a succession of scandals, prosecutions, misconduct cases that have withered public trust and confidence, battered officer morale, and left the police feeling that we're on opposing sides, pitted against each other. And somehow along the way, we've got the blame. When Baroness Casey surveyed nearly 7,000 Metropolitan Police officers and staff, asking why they think the reputation of the Metropolitan Police had nosedived, 93% answered negative media coverage. Baroness Casey told reporters, basically, the Met blame the media. Who do they essentially blame for their reputation nosediving? They blame you. But here's the thing. That's not just a problem for the media, it's a big problem for policing. Let's take the disappearance of Nicola Bulley. Let's hope this works. At the very first press conference, a journalist asked the superintendent, are there any other factors with Nicola that may have contributed to the situation? Was she ill? Was she taking any medication? Any underlying conditions or anything? The answer came back, we've clearly considered the whole picture, but that's not relevant at this time. No, not at all. Now, I'm not here to judge why that comment was made, but I think we all know that patently wasn't true. And the decision to withhold that information created a circus of conspiracy theories, a whirlwind of speculation, which attracted so-called TikTok detectives, psychics, social media sleuths, and suddenly those people were sitting in baseball caps next to journalists at press conferences because nobody had bothered to check press accreditation. This can never happen again. How can you have a meaningful conversation with journalists about what is happening in an investigation when you've got a conspiracy theorist in a baseball cap sitting next to you? The result of all of this was officers had to issue dispersal orders because people were filming themselves searching the river and filming themselves breaking into abandoned buildings. In the words of one council leader, it had become a morbid tourist attraction. And it worries me, and it should worry you, because what is to stop this happening again in your investigation? How long before one of these conspiracy theorists goes and knocks on the door of the deceased family or attempts to meddle with a crime scene? If officers had been forthright with the media from the very start about what they were facing, it would have ended that speculation, the confusion, the public hysteria, quite frankly. And arguably, this tragic case would never have led the front pages for nearly 3 weeks. This is a lesson that I believe policing should learn. Police should be speaking to the media more, not less. And by that, I do not mean making her health issues public. What I believe should have happened in that case is that officers could have held a non-reportable briefing for the media, strictly on background, and they could provide some of that guidance there. Had Lancashire Police told reporters at the very start there were welfare concerns in a clearly defined, non-reportable setting, her disappearance would have been reported very differently, and details of her personal problems might never have come out. This should be happening in every single major, high-profile investigation. If you want to stop speculation blazing about your investigation, commentary on social media, be more honest about what's going on. Be more open. It should be normal for officers in high-profile, fast-running investigations to hold background briefings, taking journalists into their confidence to privately explain what they're thinking, providing insight about the direction of the investigation. Strictly off-record, and when I say off-record, I mean, I've referred before to reportable and non-reportable. There can be some confusion about off-record. I think it's easier to term it very strictly in the media so there's a clear delineation between what is reportable and what is clearly not. Those briefings help crime journalists understand the difficulties of the investigation, and it informs our reporting. And if you don't trust us, get the journalists present to sign legally binding waivers in the same way you would if it was a pre-trial briefing. I assure you, if you take journalists into your confidence, there are real benefits for policing. Not so long ago, the Metropolitan Police had a major missing person case which made headlines across the country. But it threatened to become a huge PR problem for the force, because the public were questioning, why are detectives spending so much time and so much resources hunting around the country for a couple who effectively just wanted to be on their own with their newborn baby? It was a case that the SIO acknowledged, without the media's help, they were never going to solve. So the SIO held a press conference in which he gave the journalists an off-the-record or non-reportable briefing on the background of the case, an opportunity to answer all of those questions. I won't go into the circumstances of that case, but that briefing was essential for us to understand the clear picture of what was going on. And to the credit of the SIO, he listened to the feedback of those present. And what he said is, you can report all of this, this is a CCTV of when they were last seen and where we last think they were, and this is all the background stuff. But one of the journalists said there, well, the problem is you've already put that CCTV clip out, and so we haven't really got a story. Can I make a suggestion? There is something already that's been reported in a foreign jurisdiction that's onto the internet already about one of the people who's effectively on the run. Can we write about that? Yes, was the answer. He listened to the feedback, and what had originally thinking that that might be non-reportable, he agreed on consultation that was reportable. And that toing and fro, that sort of sensible, common sense approach meant that killed off the speculation about that story, which was hindering the search, and the couple were found as a direct result of the publicity. Now, you may well be asking, what if someone breaks the rules? In my decade at the Crime Reporters Association, how many have done so? Anyone take a guess? Not one. I recall many years ago, Surrey Police took us into their confidence about who they thought had killed Millie Dowler. It turned out that theory was wrong, but nobody breathed a word while the detectives had that time to go away and disprove that theory. Just a few weeks ago, the same force held a non-reportable briefing to give guidance on an ongoing investigation. Has anyone written anything in the papers about it? Of course not. So let me tell you a little bit about the Crime Reporters Association. We're a group of 45 specialist journalists covering crime and policing across print, broadcast and new media. I'm the chair happened to be the first chair since 1945 when it was established, who's a woman. At that time, it was then led by the Metropolitan Commission was Sir Harold Scott. It was a very different time where the CRA used to hang out in the basement of Scotland Yard and probably going for drinks with loads of officers. Times have changed, but our keenness to engage with you has not. Our organisation represents all the national broadcasters, newspapers, and most of the websites. We've got specialist knowledge in crime and court reporting. Some of you will know me, some of you people will know the people sitting on this table over here. We've been reporting about policing, home affairs, the courts, for some cases decades. So what can we offer? Well, as I said, a gateway to experienced journalists and a single point of contact for media organisations. If you want to know who we are, I've got a spreadsheet with every single email address, phone number, you name it. With all our experience, we offer context, a voice for change, and a professional voice. So how can the CRA help? Well, we provide an opportunity for officers to communicate with the public. I think we've spoken about that a little bit, about how policing is changing for the better, and some of the work that's going on to make a real difference. We can spark a national debate on some of the priorities in policing. We've heard in just this conference about what some of those priorities may be. We want to hear about your groundbreaking work. More on that later. The key is to educate the public about the key issues in your area, which may well have national significance. How can we work better together? Officers should seek to have a trusted dialogue with journalists. The presumption should be openness and transparency. Not, as I've heard during this conference, people saying to my colleagues, I never speak to the media, never have, never will. Proudly, they're saying that. That's not a solution. As I said before, I think the police should consider reportable and non-reportable briefings to address speculation. In the vacuum of information, there will be speculation. Don't just complain about it, address it. You can address it in a non-reportable briefing or a reportable one with either an individual or the media as a whole. And for those who are sitting there thinking, why do I need to speak to you? I work for the Daily Mail, I'm the crime and security editor of the Daily Mail. And some of you may be thinking, well, newspapers, who buys those anymore? Who watches the 10 o'clock news? People get their news from Facebook, Twitter as it was, TikTok. But where do you think Facebook, Twitter, TikTok get their news? They don't have journalists. They get it from us. So that's why I say to you, let's have a relationship, a trusted relationship with the mainstream media. And don't wait for a major incident in your force. Get to know us. I was struck by this advertising feature by the Metropolitan Police that they paid for in the London Evening Standard, with the headline, "Encouraging officers to talk openly is the key to breaking down barriers in the Met." I couldn't agree more. As I've said, police should be striving to be more open, not less. And on that, when was the last time that you picked up the phone and rang a journalist about a cracking piece of work that you're doing, or even instructed a police press officer to put it out there? Can I see a show of hands? Okay, I think that's probably maybe 20 people. Apparently there are about 200 people or something like that, maybe less today. Nonetheless, my challenge to you would be, why hasn't everybody got their hands up? You've been in policing all this time. I hope you've had some media training. Certainly, you're all exceptionally senior and experienced in your roles. We want to hear about your work. There's a huge amount of work led by superintendents that goes unreported. And much more could be done to highlight those brilliant investigations and innovative practice. And contrary to what you may believe, the media are not out to get you. Now let's look at that, because I know that's what many of you in the audience might be thinking. Last year, the Superintendents Association was presented with a survey suggesting the media were only interested in the bad news about policing. It concluded, you can see there, 32% was the average of stories in a whole, they looked at a period of a month, 7 newspapers, and whether a story was considered good, bad, or neutral. 32% of the stories about police officers and policing were considered negative, the majority. 11.6% were considered positive because they praised bravery, heroism, community spirit, or charity work, or used other positive adjectives. But I believe that's a fundamental misrepresentation of what the media are there to do and what the public is interested in. It's not all about heroics and bravery work and bravery medals and charity work. It's this bit I've highlighted in yellow. That's the bit that's crucial, I think, the 55.9% that's judged neutral, neither good nor bad. Because it's that bit that's telling the public about what you do day in, day out, taking the bad guys off the street, the arrests, the charges, finding missing people, helping those at their most vulnerable. It's that daily work that gives the public comfort, and with it, confidence. And when you add that together, so the positive bit and the neutral bit, 67.5% of policing stories published in a month in the national newspapers were either positive or neutral about policing. Now that doesn't sound nearly so bad. Let me give you an example. At perhaps Scotland Yard's worst hour after the murder of Sarah Everard, the force managed to showcase one of its most brilliant investigations. The detective who caught Wayne Couzens was asked at a press conference during his conviction, how did she do it? And she gave an hour-by-hour, day-by-day account of how she got him. And it was fascinating. It was better than any Netflix crime show. I was absolutely hooked, and so were the readers. We want to hear more of those stories, your stories. We need to start talking again, telling the public about some of the brilliant, heroic, and often thankless work that you do day in, day out. So I'm asking you to trust me, to trust us, the media, because I think we're part of the solution. If you let us in, I hope we can work together to rebuild the public's trust and confidence. Thank you for listening.